Welcome to a new era for the Money Guy Show.
Brian, I am so excited about today because we get to share something that we've been working on a lot in the background, that we're really excited about, that we really want you guys to know about, and I think it's going to be awesome.
Well, Bo, I loved, because we've gone through a complete exercise to kind of know who we are, what makes us tick. And I think you guys, a lot of you know, we're on a mission to create more millionaires, to make it easier to create financial independence.
To knock our microphones over in the middle of our thing.
But you know, we're on a journey to simplify complex ideas to make good financial decision making as easy as possible for everyone.
Yeah, not only that, we want to help people fast track your freedom and live a more fulfilling life, because that's really what money is. It's simply a tool to allow us to do the things that we want to do. And if the content that we share here and the information we provide to you helps you do that more quickly, then in our minds, that is a huge, huge, huge win.
And then this is something that's always been near and dear to my heart. You would say this is kind of what led to the abundance cycle, is that I really do believe that everything we do is I'm trying to help you guys create that great, big, beautiful tomorrow. And that stuff is so important to us. And it's so, what I want to talk about, just what drives us, the mission of the show. And I think about just the origin story, Bo. And in reality, I kind of did this as a passion.
Sure.
In 2006, I was so excited to be an educator, to kind of share the good information that I felt like the public was starved of without all the conflicts of interest. So I started doing the original podcast. And I was blown away that iTunes kind of made us a featured business show for 10 years. But I wasn't very deliberate. I just enjoyed the journey. I enjoyed the process of people, kind of processing and getting wealthy and successful off of the information. I will say we had a new era in 2017 when we started doing YouTube, and we've tried to become much more deliberate to amplify what the Money Guy Show can do, because we feel so much about the mission of what we're doing that we ought to be more deliberate to get this in front of as many people as possible.
Yeah, and so what we've done so far was kind of the best that we could figure out. Again, it wasn't started to be a business idea. It wasn't started to be this large enterprise. It was just started as a means and a mechanism to get really great information out there. And so a lot of the stuff we kind of had to figure out as we went through it. And one of those things that we had to kind of figure out is, okay, how do we look? What's the way that we make ourselves look? How do we brand ourselves? How do we present ourselves? And if you've been with us for a long time, you've seen a number of different iterations of this. The most recent of which is this logo right here that we've been riding for a while.
Yeah, and let me give you some feedback on this logo. Now, look, this logo has been great. I think it does. This is kind of pre-2017 when we were doing YouTube. We were podcasters. And what I find interesting is there's a gentleman that I've known for decades now. It's crazy that I can say that. He's one of the grandfathers of podcasting. His name is Steve Stewart. Now, I never forget, this has got to be at least 5 years ago. He posted on Twitter, he was like, if your logo for your podcast has a microphone in it, you're doing it all wrong. So I'm friends with Steve. So I replied to his tweet at the time, and I said, hey, what about me? And he's like, oh, you're like one of the only exceptions I know that used the microphone in the logo and it worked. But that's always kind of been an echo in my head that maybe we missed the mark. And then imagine my surprise when we started going through this exercise is let's refresh, let's update kind of what we're doing with the Money Guy Show. And it was shared with me that the microphone that's been the Money Guy Show icon for years, many years. We're probably getting close to a decade. It's clip art.
No, that's
talking about deflating clip art. So it's so the branding person helped us with that. I had no idea that they had just pulled us out of something that anybody else could too. But we needed to do a refresh. We needed to do something that kind of reflected all those core things that we just shared with you.
Yeah, we want something that shows people who are interacting with us for the first time, who are seeing us for the first time, to really understand what the show is, why we do it, what it means, and to recognize that it's bigger than just this kind of side idea, this thing that we were doing sort of as a pastime and a hobby. The mission that we're on is more important than just being a pastime. And so we want to make sure that the brand itself actually reflects that.
So today's going to be a big thank you. We wanted to tell you guys, I don't take for granted that the original passion of this show to educate people to make good financial decisions was so accepted, and you guys had such a hunger for it that you've helped us grow, and really help us build a business around this. I had no idea this was going to turn into a business idea when I was originally creating those first episodes back in 2006. But here's why this is a thank you. We have really done this deep dive on who we are, knowing what makes us tick. And as a result, we've also created new logos.
That's exactly right.
New branding. And we're going to pay it forward to you all today. So if you have questions, please get them in, because you're going to see we've got some really cool things we're going to share with you to pay it forward to you as well.
All right, so drum roll, please. This is the old logo. You've seen what it looks like. You know what the old look was. The new look moving forward for the Money Guy is going to be this. We want this to be something that is unique, but also tells a story of who we are and what we do. And one of the things we're going to focus on is this new icon that we've come up with. And the idea behind this is it's supposed to communicate conversation and education, because that's exactly what it is we do. When we are sitting here in front of you, or when we are developing content, we're writing blog posts, when we're building courses, when we are designing deliverables for you, we want it to be a two-way communication from us to you that educates you on how to take your finances to the next level. We feel like this mark really captures that.
Well, I mean, it kept the feedback, and this makes me, you have no idea how excited it makes me when you guys say, hey, you guys strike me as my two friends that I would drink a beer and ask you financial questions. That is a conversation. And then if you take into account why the plus mark, everything we've done is to help you maximize. And we're trying to, if you think about those 4 things we just posted, we're trying to help you know exactly what to do so you can be the best version of yourself financially, reach financial independence quicker, fast track your success. Every bit of that is about maximizing and plussing your financial life.
So as you start to see some of our content, as you start to see our deliverables, as you start to see the things we're putting out, you're going to begin recognizing this. But Brian, we can't go on without you sharing maybe one of your favorite little pieces.
It wasn't complete. I mean, when the branding folks kind of came to us, I was like, hey, I love everything you're doing, but it's missing something. And look, I mean, the Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow is completely connected with the abundance cycle, where I really do. We were just doing a 401k presentation yesterday, and I said, I think the reason this brand is done so well and the reason our content connects is that, I really do want you guys to learn, apply what we're sharing, absolutely free, apply it to your life, grow, create a level of success, and then that's when people graduate to need our help. And the thing that really excited me is that the abundance cycle, I didn't feel like was completely reflected in there. I mean, where is that in the conversation? Where is that in the plus?
Sure.
So they came back with an Easter egg, and I love Easter eggs. When you find out somebody has put something right before your eyes, but you didn't even see it, it's something you'll never forget. And this is the part. So if you look at, I don't know if you want to go back one click before you do the reveal, but do y'all see in the Money Guy, there's an Easter egg there that represents the sweetness of the abundance cycle. Do you see it? Okay, now, Bo, here's the big reveal. It's the G. If you'll look at that G, if you notice, that's actually an arrow that's representing the cycle of the abundance cycle, where you come learn, apply, grow, and become the best version of yourself. Now forever, hopefully, when you see this new logo, you're going to be like, there it is. There's the abundance cycle. There's where these guys planted that Easter egg, so you'll be reminded what the why is for why we create all this content.
And so this is the first step in that direction. This is the first step of us beginning to communicate more of who we are and what it is we hope to do out there in the financial world. And so with that, you're going to see some changes. One of the big changes is right now you're going to see some updates to our website that are going to reflect this. But in the coming months, we are actually doing a full website overhaul. We have some really exciting things in the works where we want our website to be something that's even more valuable for you, something where you can easily find the information that you want to find, and you can easily get to what you need to get to be able to take your finances to the next level. So you're going to see some changes in the interim, But we're really, really excited. We don't know when the actual launch date is going to be, but we're really excited. We do have a brand new website in the works for you guys.
But I think it's even the interim website is a big improvement.
Absolutely.
It's an update. So, I mean, you're going to get a two-parter essentially. Go check it out. Go to moneyguy.com and you can see the new kind of placeholder that we've had. It's a nice refresh. And then we're feverishly working behind the scenes. We were hoping it all lined up. But if you go to moneyguy.com/resources, we've even got brand new rebranded resources that we want you to take advantage of. So go check those out as well. And then I would be at a fault if I didn't thank you guys. The Know Your Number course.
We
had the pre-launch.
Today.
The pre-launch was the last 2 weeks, and then today is the official first day of Know Your Number. You're going to start getting that around lunchtime today. You're going to be able to start going in to download that and check out all the content. And here's what I think is amazing. You guys embraced it. So I can't wait to get the feedback on hopefully this is another thing that we've created that fast-tracks your success, because that's really what we're doing. But that's not where this stops. Like I said, this is a big thank you moment. So we have rebranded, but we've also, everybody wants that unicorn of swag, because we don't sell our
all
swag.
All through the comments right now.
We don't sell our swag. You have to kind of earn our swag. And we have a new tumbler. But there's more. Bo, go ahead and why don't you show them the tumbler? And then off camera, I can get Daniel to hook me up with mine.
So this right here, I'll give you the visual aspects of it. This is our brand new tumbler. Hey, Raby, we're gonna give some of these away today, aren't we? We're gonna give away a bunch of these today. But this is the brand new tumbler. It has the new Money Guy logo. That it also has our new mark and emblem. So everywhere that you are, you will be reminded about the group of folks that want to communicate and educate you in order to maximize your financial potential.
Now, I love Easter eggs. So it gets me excited, just like the logo has the abundance cycle represented. When Rebe showed me these new tumblers, she was like, they actually have another feature. And
Dual purpose.
I was like, what? There's something it does besides hold, your nice cold and warm beverages very well with the dual insulated stainless steel. And she was like, yes. And then she showed me, so I want to demonstrate, because this is pretty exciting stuff. Not only is this a tumbler, it transforms into a koozie.
It's a koozie
so
also.
Not only does it keep your drinks in here if you drink it as a tumbler, but you're going to notice I'm going to be using it now as a koozie to keep my nice frosty beverage cool during the show. So, I mean, that made my day when I saw that. So I can't wait. What we plan on doing, every Q&A, because this is a Q&A show. I don't want us to get distracted because we're excited about this. We're going to be answering 11 questions, and we're going to be giving away 11 tumblers/koozies. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
This is something we want you guys to know. What this is right now, what we're talking about, it's a makeover. Nothing is changing. The way that we do the show, the content that we are sharing, our ultimate motivation and drive isn't changing. We're just trying to better represent to the public what that is, because we feel like the brand and the enterprise has grown to that place. And frankly, you guys deserve it. And so we are excited to be able to continue to give back to you guys as a thank you for supporting us over all these years.
Hey, and by the way, whoever out there said, is Brian retiring? Give me a break. Guys, we're just getting started. I mean, I saw that. I was like, I'm not even close. I mean, we just got this engine in first gear right now. So, no, we're nowhere close to that. So, we're excited.
All right, so you guys know we love getting to answer your questions. What we ultimately care about is what are the things that we can share that are valuable to you. And when you show up and you ask us a question, it costs you nothing. We love that. We want this to be a value add for you. So right now, get your questions in the chat. The team is out on the wings pulling those in. And with that, producer Rebe, I'm going to throw it over to you.
I am so excited to get to these questions and to give away the brand new tumblers. So keep getting your questions in the chat. We are going to start with Ben's question. He says, is allocating a portion of my investing into single stocks of big companies like Berkshire, Google, Pepsi, etc., is this a good strategy during a bear market? Many of those stocks have been outperforming the S&P. What do you guys think?
Great question. Well, so let's talk about let me talk about our general guidance, and we'll talk about what's unique right now. Individual stock investing is, a lot of people have made huge careers doing that, right? You hear people who've had success doing that. The problem is, it's kind of difficult to really diversify well if you're having to pick individual stocks, because you have to have a lot of individual stocks to go out there and get diversification. Whereas it's much easier to say, hey, you know what? I believe in the future production of America, and I think that large companies will continue to do well in this country. So rather than having to go have 500 different holdings, I can just go buy the S&P 500. That's kind of where we land. We love low-cost index funds where you can get broad-based diversified exposure. But some people say, hey, I like stocks. I like the idea of owning a specific company, or I like supporting a specific company. And traditionally, our recommendation is if you're going to hold individual stocks, or maybe you work for a company where part of your compensation comes through publicly traded securities, we'd like for you to keep the exposure across your total portfolio around 5 to 10% of your total portfolio so that you don't have over concentration risk. Now, Brian, with that, does current economic circumstance change that guidance, or how does that factor in?
Well, I think it's interesting. I have two big thoughts just popped in my brain. Bo and I were in a car yesterday for 5 hours because we had a 401k presentation in the morning, and then we had to drive back. It was great. I mean, we had 200 plus people in a room. They were so excited. The company we work with, they do a great job of getting everybody all hyped up. They were throwing out peaches with $20 bills attached to it. It was just fascinating. But when we were talking about it, Bo and I, this is how nerdy we are. If you want to know what do Brian and Bo do on a road trip where they're in the car 5 hours,
this is going to make us sound like such
we're
losers.
yelling out companies, big companies, to look at their price to earnings ratio currently and their dividend yield, because I mean it's just it is fascinating right now. And I've told people that here's where where you are in this bear market. And I'm not calling a bottom because we don't know, because there's a lot of emotional stuff that kicks in. But there will come a point, and this is why when people don't believe that you can make 15% in a month, I'm always like, there has to come a point where the market value of the markets is not connected to the intrinsic value of the companies, because emotionally people just start throwing away good stuff.
Yep.
You just see it every time we go through a bear market. You see the disconnect. That's when the whole Warren Buffett, be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. That's where it comes in. So Bo and I, we're trying to take a measurement of how crazy things are right now. And there are a few individual stocks that you go look at and you go, whoa, the price to earnings ratio on that is like 4, and the dividend yield is getting close to 6. You're like, whoa, what do people think is going to happen there? But here's Ben, I don't want you to get distracted. This was entertaining for us, but I'm trying to make sure when we do the Money Guy Show, we're helping you have the best opportunity to kind of navigate to maximize every dollar that you are fortunate enough to manage and ensure that it is turned into the best version of itself. And that's why we did develop brand new, rebranded right off the presses, but we've had the financial order of operations, which is the 9 steps, the 9 proven steps to help make sure you maximize how you do that with every dollar that you come into. And we love index funds because they allow you're fishing with nets versus fishing with a fishing pole. Look, it's fun to be a sport fisherman. In light of all the scandals that have been in sport fishing recently, that has wasted 15 minutes of content meetings. But sport fishing is fun, but more often than not, you only share your big winners. You don't tell everybody all your fishing tales of how you sat in a boat and it didn't work out well. I would rather, since your retirement, your family, and your future depends upon it, let's fish like your life really does depend upon it, like you're a commercial fisherman. Throw the nets in the water. That's going to happen with index funds. So that's why I want you all the way through step 8, 1 through 8, all the way to 8, I guess 1 through 7. I want you focusing on making sure you're maximize your savings rate, your investment rate, that you're taking advantage of all the tax-free growth opportunities, the free money from your employer. All of that should be done with your eating money. That's right. That's what steps 1 through 7 are, is to make sure you have the best version of yourself in retirement, and your future self gives you that sloppy bear hug where you can't believe how successful you are. But I think once you're saving and investing 25% and you've made it through steps 1 through 7 and you reach step 8 and you're trying to figure out, am I doing residential real estate? Am I doing individual stocks? Am I buying a nicer car because I've made it through some of those basics and the foundational things? Ben, I don't have a problem with it. Just I do want to warn you emotionally. I struggle with people who they will have a net worth of $2 million but have $25,000 in one individual stock, and that one stock will depress them when it's up or down. And I just don't make sure that you don't get so emotionally connected that at Thanksgiving you're not only setting a table for your aunts, uncles, nieces, and nephews, that you're also setting a table for that individual stock that you're emotionally connected to. That's not healthy. So just make sure you keep those things, do it at the right time. This is vacation money, not eating money, as Charles likes to share with us. Just make sure you're putting that in the right order, and I think you'll be served well.
Love it.
Ben, you are the first person to get a new Money Guy tumbler.
First one.
Woo, woo.
And koozie.
And koozie. Tumbler koozie combo. If you would like to cash in on that, just email Katie, Katie, at moneyguy.com, and she will make sure it's you and get that shipped out to you.
Daniel, I failed on that one, by the way.
What did you fail on?
He said keep the answers short.
Well, can I be honest? I had like one or two more things. I was like, that's good.
My bad. I filibustered everybody.
You did a great answer, though.
I had
it's
some
all
good like individual stock stuff in there, but we'll
do
pick that
better.
up later.
We'll do better. But when it's rolling, it's rolling.
It's rolling. It's all good. All right, we're going to move on to Jennifer's question. She says, the Know Your Number course drops today. Yes, it does, Jennifer. What can I expect other than what is on the website? Does this account for variables such as pensions, tax brackets, etc.? Can I use this long term? Can you guys speak to what you're going to find and then why you made this in the first place? Like, why is knowing your number and factoring in all these variables so important?
Oh man, that was a nice little setup. Is that really how she wrote the question?
Truly. Like,
That's
I guess
great.
I added that last little sentence.
Okay.
But yeah, everything was Jennifer.
So I think here's what I think is interesting. Let me tell you, why can I start with what Know Your Number is not, and then maybe you come in with what it is. Here's what we did not do with the Know Your Number course. We did not come up with a solution that will replace a customized, specific retirement plan for you. So when you think about things like pension income and Social Security income and those types of things, they factor in to help you knowing what your number is, but they're not doing things like running Monte Carlo simulations and figuring out the appropriate asset allocation for you. That is something where you don't want generalized advice. You don't want something, well, this generally works for most people. When it becomes time for you to actually exit the workforce, walk away from your job, move into whatever your great, big, beautiful tomorrow is, you don't want something generalized. You want something very specific for your unique circumstances and your unique variables. What we tried to do with the Know Your Number course is capture as many of those as we could in sort of a general format, but it's not a replacement for a retirement plan. Rather, we want it to be the motivation to keep you moving in the direction towards what that horizon line looks like.
Well, I look at it as both education and tool, is that we've worked on all of our content is free to everybody.
That's right.
I want you to come, just experience this. But I do think sometimes people will, on their journey, once you realize you're taking this serious and you want to maximize the opportunity of every dollar, that the courses are supposed to amplify that. They're supposed to fast track you. And then you're right, as you get close to retirement, you're probably going to want to enable even more tools to stress test, make sure you're on the right path. But I do think for somebody who's 20 to 50 years old and you know that you're 5 to 10 years and you know nobody's giving you the guidance on how much should you be saving, what does cash flow impacts like
how much
pensions
does that affect it?
And those type of inflation, how do these variables, because that's the word Jennifer did make sure she included, because there's so many variables out there. Who's going to help you wrangle the cats and figure out how to do this, as easy as possible? And sometimes you need more than what we can do in a show. That's what Know Your Number is, because it actually walks you through. We have a tool at the end. There's actually a tool at the beginning too, because we walk you through first understanding what are all the variables. The other thing we do is we have to ask you, hey, how good are you with your income that you've been entrusted with? You know, you earn this income, but how much of that is actually turning into wealth? So we actually give you some tools and metrics as part of the homework so you can figure out your wealth score. We even incorporate some of the Millionaire Next Door, but modified the Money Guy way. So you can have some accountability to know, are you saving enough, or do you need to cut down your expenses? And then we keep on with the education path so that by the time you get to the actual calculation of know your number, you kind of know everything that can come your way to really maximize that journey. Now, of course, when you're 5 years from retirement, 10 years from retirement, and you're like, this is great, but now I'm a multimillionaire, I've crossed the 7-figure mark, and I'm really to make sure that there's not blind spots or things that I'm missing, then you'll even go to the next level of the abundance cycle and consider hiring us. But I think this will fast track your ability to know how much should I be saving, what variables impact this decision, and I'm also being super efficient with how much money I'm making.
Yeah, and I think one of the questions she had asked is, okay, why'd you guys do this? What was the motivation? When we think about motivation, whenever we build a product, or even when we do shows, we sit around and we say, okay, at the end of this, after someone's worked through this course, or after we've recorded this show, what's the thing that we want the person on the other end of the microphone to walk away from? That's kind of our litmus test for how we come up with the things that we do. Well, for most folks who are making sound financial decisions, right? They figure out, okay, I know I'm following. We answer the question, what do I do with my next dollar? Okay, that's financial order of operations. Okay, well, what's my journey been looking like? That is literally the net worth tool. What was I doing back then and what am I doing now? Well, now we're talking about, okay, what does the destination look like? So as you start to put these tools and these bits and pieces together, it paints a very clear picture of your financial journey so that you can stay motivated, stay disciplined, and actually know that you're moving in the right direction, on the right path, to the right goal.
Yeah, and we'd be horrible business people if we didn't say learn.moneyguy.com is the website for it. It went hot today, so go check it out. And I really, my intent when we do this, and I know it cringes people up when I say this, but I'm just transparent. This is never a money grab thing. This is, I want you, after you're done with the journey, to be, I can't believe I got all that for that. I mean, that really is every product we do. That is my goal. I think you can tell our heart as educators really is to load you up. If you just want to come observe and absorb the free content, I'm perfectly great with that. But if you want to accelerate the process, this is the next evolution of that ties into what Bo just shared.
Awesome. Jennifer, if you would like a brand new tumbler, just email Katie, Katie @moneyguy.com, and we will work on getting that sent out to you. Okay, Darren's question is up next. What's the cutoff where you'd pay extra money towards a mortgage versus investing more? With interest rates rising, I feel like more folks are having to make this decision.
See, it's so interesting to me. I feel like we keep getting this question often. People always ask the question, hey, because of mortgage rates, when should I make the decision to pay off the mortgage? I wish more people would ask, hey, because of where I am in the financial order of operations, because of where I am in my financial wealth building, because of where I am on my financial journey, when does that happen? It's just so interesting that interest rates has begun to become the thing that is driving people to ask that question. So what would, Brian, your answer be to, is there a cutoff? I mean, I know sort of our generalized advice, right? The generalized advice is once you've worked through the financial order of operations, once you've satisfied hyperaccumulation, and in our opinion, once you're getting a little bit older, a little bit wiser, past age 45, I think is the number that you most often quote, okay, that's when it tends to start making sense to prepay the mortgage. But there's probably more that goes into it than just that in terms of when should I prepay, when should I not prepay?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not going to get into because we've given this answer a number of times. I'm sure there's a highlight out there with the whole risk premium, the way we look at treasuries to figure out what is the risk-free rate of return, and all those things go in. Let me just give you this answer. Right now, I still don't feel like mortgage rates have reached the point that they have pushed into where they're now step 3 of high interest that you're doing. So I just want to give that because I want to clear room to answer the next part of this. If I don't think mortgage rates are too high because we know that they've gotten into the 6s, what do I think you ought to be thinking about? Remember this whole discussion for people who are under 45. I'm really worried about people from 20 to 45. If you're not saving for the future, trying to really prioritize getting 20 to 25% of your gross income invested, you will not become the maximum version, the best version of yourself on building wealth. And for people over 45, it's something as you're approaching retirement, because I still want you to have the goal to be completely debt-free by the time you walk into retirement, because debt is control. And if you want to say you're completely financially independent and unencumbered, you want to have complete control of your life and your time. It's hard to do that when you have debt. Now, this is something that I think is interesting. Right now, and I told this to the content team, and we talked about it yesterday in the car, I think a lot of people are misconstruing what's going on right now with the financial markets, even all those 401k participants that we spoke to yesterday. And I'm going to say this to you. There are times in your life where what feels safe is actually risky, and the things that feel risky actually in the future you're going to be able to look back and go, man, that was actually a safe call to do that, because things get all out of sorts. And when you look at the valuations of what's going on with investments, S&P 500 and components of that, Bo, we were shocked. And I would encourage you, look, I want you guys investing in index funds, but I would encourage you, go look at some of the top holdings, companies that you use their products, you use their services, you use the technology. Go look at the price to earnings ratio, go look at the dividend yields on some of those things, and be like, what? There will come a time, and I've already echoed this already, where intrinsic value, meaning what companies are actually worth, will separate from the market value. I don't know when that actual dead bottom point is, but I do pay attention to these things that I just shared with you, so you can try to start figuring out, whoa, is this getting crazy? You're never going to time the market and nail it right, because we could lose 10%, we could lose 15%, or we could fire the rockets up and head up into the next bull market tomorrow. Don't play that game. But I do want you to pay attention to, what are things in a favorable intrinsic value compared to market value? And should I prioritize getting as much money working for me, especially if you're under 45, so that I can embrace my future self and have those sloppy, teary eyes and bear hugs and be like, thank goodness you had the foresight to actually put money to work and not be scared just because it's an uncertain period.
Yeah, I think one thing that's now look, I want to be clear. I'm not a boomer, and I know as soon as I say this next thing, I'm going to get all kinds of boomer content.
By the way,
I'm not either.
I'm not.
Neither one of us are.
Okay, clarify, because I'm the older guy here.
Wow, nobody wants to be a boomer.
What I think
here
is interesting in the environment in which we live right now, we are all suffering from significant recency bias. Most young folks, I'm going to throw myself in that category, think that when you go out and buy a mortgage, the normal level of rates is 2.5%, 3.5% mortgages. It's really interesting when you look at historic mortgage rates. Perhaps right now we're a touch high, but it's not like we are gravously higher, right? But what's hard is we all know that, yeah, okay, a year ago, 2 years ago, I could have gotten those super, super, super low rates. I think when we step back from this moment in time, from what we've seen taking place right now, and look, okay, mortgage rates certainly are higher than they were, but historically, are they really that high? Are they closer to maybe normal? Have we just come through a period where rates were like super, super, super depressed? So I think some calibration around that would be helpful, especially if you're making decisions around, okay, is this mortgage rate really high interest, or is this just normal interest? And I, like you say, I can go out and earn a better rate of return with dollars that I might deploy elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're going to look back in that period where mortgage rates were in the 2 and 3s. That's the abnormal period. I mean, this is my first mortgage. I've shared this many times on the show. When I bought my first house, it was 6.75, and I thought I stole it.
Yep, it was a great rate.
Because rates had just come down from 7.5, like literally 2 to 3 weeks earlier. So I was so just excited about 6.75. I know that seems insane when we had 2.5 to 3% mortgages, less than a year and a half ago. But that's historic. So go check that out, and then make sure you understand the risk versus reward component, because if you're young, The risk is you're not going to be wealthy. And that's what I want to make sure you maximize, building wealth into assets that can work harder than you can with your back, your brains, and your hands. Put that money to work, because people I think they get that whole risk component discombobulated.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Darren, if you would like a new Money Guy tumbler, just email Katie, Katie at moneyguy.com.
She forgot how to spell it.
I had this
She's so
weird
excited about
moment.
the tumbler, she forgot how to spell Katie's name.
Katie, this normal spelling, Katie. Yeah, we're super excited to get that sent out to you. Thanks for your question. All right, next we have a question from, his username is struggling to do the right thing.
Uh-oh.
So hopefully we can help him out. I feel that I am to the point that I need the help of a financial advisor. I want to do the right thing. He really did say that in the question. Can you speak to the cost versus benefit of partnering with an advisor like Abound Wealth?
Okay, cost versus benefit. Because I want to think about how to, because so obviously we do this for a living. This is what our quote unquote day job is. But I want to make sure that I'm not just giving you some self-serving answer. I want us to speak to actual like value add that advisors go. I think one of the first things you have to assess when it comes to hiring a financial advisor is, when does it make sense to do so? Because you have to answer the when question, and then you have to answer the valuation question. In our opinion, there are 3 times that it really makes sense to think about hiring a financial advisor. Either one, the size of your decisions is so big you're uncomfortable doing it by yourself. 10% boo-boos on $1 million is a really big boo-boo that might be hard to overcome. The second thing is, your financial life just gets so complicated, you don't know what you don't know. Things have happened in your financial life where you're just not as well versed on those as maybe you were earlier on in life. And then the third thing is, we just get busy. We get pulled in all these different directions, and all of a sudden we notice our financial affairs begin falling on the back burner, on the back burner, on the back burner. If you happen to be in one of those 3 places, that might be a really good indication, hey, this is a good time for me to entertain the idea of potentially hiring a professional to help me. So once you've arrived at that, then you can think, okay, well, what are some of the values that a professional adds? What are some of the things that they can help me with?
By the way, we have a great resource. If you go to moneyguy.com/resources, we have the 8 questions you should ask your financial advisor.
Freshly new brand.
Yeah, go check that out. That's the first thing. First stop, so you can have a good piece, a tool to actually have the discussion. But the thing I sit here and think about is, I had a big transaction recently that I was like, because I'm like you guys. You know, I'm like, if I can do this myself, I want to do it myself, save a few bucks. And I was Googling terms in this legal document, and I was like, what? I caught myself. I was like, what are you doing? I was like, when you're Googling terms of a legal document, you're crazy, because this is the first time I've gone through this transaction. There are people who've literally done this thousands of times. It would be a lot better if that person was helping me navigate this. But I didn't want to do it originally because they were going to take a decent chunk, a percentage of what this transaction would do. And I was like, man, I really had to measure twice and think about it. But at the end of the day, and now I'm kind of into the process, I'm like, thank goodness I hired this person, because I was on the wrong side of this, because I didn't know what my blind spots were. I didn't know what were the things that people were going to try to turn the screws on in this transaction that I was doing. Retirement's kind of the same thing. A lot of you don't know what the psychological, and I deal with this all the time with people. You can think you are super comfortable with the risk of the markets and diversifying and investments. When I'm in the Boglehead type chats, and they're like, 100%, VOO or whatever they want to, they always give me the index fund. I'm going to do this, do it ride or die, for forever. Why would anybody ever diversify? And I'm like, oh, they don't know what's going to happen once they leave the workforce, because what happens when you go through your first downturn and you are no longer working, because you're kind of subject to the emotional, it gets amplified to a level you never experienced, when you no longer can go back through that threshold of saying, I'll go work a few more years to make it through it. Because right now, when the market's down, you can be like, hey, that's all right. I'm not retiring for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. I'll just keep working. It'll recover. It'll be okay. When you're actually out there in retirement, it gets scary. And that's where a lot of people will like having that co-pilot to kind of help you, been there, done that, and help you make the right decisions instead of the emotional decisions.
And I think a lot of the flaw when people hire a financial advisor is they think about it only in terms of, okay, here's my cost. What rate of return can this person return to me that is greater than that cost? And while that's like an easy numeric way to do that, a really good financial advisor, there are other things that ought to come into the equation. Like, for example, how do you quantify an advisor that puts together a Roth conversion strategy that saves you hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes over the remainder of your life because you structured your account in a different way? Or how do you quantify the value add that an advisor gives you when your Monte Carlo simulation in your first meeting was an 83%, but because of some savings goals and strategies you've implemented, that Monte Carlo probability of success goes to 95%. Those are some of the intangible, hard to quantify benefits that we think an advisor can really lean into. So if you're thinking about hiring an advisor, I would encourage you to use the 8 questions to ask that we have on the website. But here's also a really great question to ask an advisor when you talk with them. And this is something we tell our folks. Hey, when you come and work with us, our job is to get you addicted to us. Our job is to make sure that we add so much value that this fee thing you're worried about on the front end just falls off. And you immediately start saying things like, oh, I couldn't imagine doing this without you. I couldn't imagine not having you in my corner helping me navigate these financial decisions. And if you ever feel like the value isn't there, well, we have a system set up where you can vote with your feet and you can leave and you can go somewhere else and you can go do it on your own. And I think you'll be amazed that once you kind of cross that threshold and you start saying, oh, this is what an advisor does. This is what really great planning looks like. It'll blow your mind and you'll say things like, oh man, I'm so glad that I found them when, or I started doing this when.
Well, I think it's interesting. I don't want to, because we need to tie this question down, but you just said something that hit me so hard. Is I think about when I talk to some of our primary advisors and they talk about working with the CPAs or they reviewed a tax return and they found a huge glaring structure mistake.
Huge.
And then I think about a legal settlement that I personally helped that person realize that because attorney's fees weren't deductible anymore under the new tax policy, that this was going to cost them a fortune because it was multiple 7 figures I saved them with just asking the questions, and the attorney was completely oblivious to the changes in the tax law. It's those type of things that, you know, big life things. I'm riding to work and I call my mom this morning and she's like, son, what do you know about prenups? And then she told me a whole story about somebody in her Sunday school class that her daughter signed something. And I was like, well, I mean, if she had somebody in her side, there's nothing wrong with, you know, legal structures in certain ways, but you need to understand what you're getting into. It's nice to have somebody who's in your corner to kind of help you. Like I said, done it before.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing that, so I get it from a tightwad or a transactional standpoint. People are expensive. Time's expensive, but your time is expensive. And I think if you look at what the potential loss is compared to what's paid, I sleep good at night because I feel like we're making the world a better place for every one of our clients.
Agreed.
Fantastic. All right. Struggling to do the right thing. If you would like a tumbler, just email Katie, Katie @moneyguy.com, and we'll work on getting that sent out to you.
By the way, Daniel, we're still failing on those short answers.
This is going to be Brian's running thing. All right. Well, let's try again with Robbie. He has a good question. If you start investing in your mid-20s, how much do you need to invest every year? And is it okay to set your goal at 20% if you start younger? Because you guys usually say 20 to 25%. How should he think about this?
Man, that is a layup. I'm going to let you have first shot at it because there's 2 things on that brand new, freshly branded website that's going to help.
You know, I'll leave the 2 things on the website for you. I'll tell you some general guidance. We love, even if you're in your mid-20s, we want to get you saving 25% of your gross income as fast as possible. Now, Brian's going to talk a little bit about what that will turn into and what you could save to get there. But here's what I've noticed in my financial journey, and here's what I've noticed with other folks that we work with who've had some financial success. The earlier you start and the more momentum you get behind you at a young age, the more options you provide yourself with later on. So I love seeing 20 and 30-year-olds who are saving that 25% because I just know beyond the shadow of a doubt that their future 40, 50, 60-year-old selves are going to thank them. They're going to say, man, I'm so glad I did that hard thing back then, because those early dollars that I saved are some of the most important, most valuable dollars in my entire army of dollar bills. So if you can do it early, even if you do a calculation, you determine, oh, well, I only need to save 16% and I can accomplish this. Saving 25% might let you do that sooner or accomplish things that you didn't realize at that time you wanted to accomplish.
Well, and look, I'm going to be the nice guy here and give you an out in the fact that I know for 20-somethings, we're in a bad economy right now,
sure, it's
too.
hard. It's hard right now.
Saying 25% of your gross income is aspirational because, I mean, I get it. Housing's expensive. Life is expensive. But I do want you to feel the pressure that you should, from, like I said, an aspirational standpoint, you need to do this. And, and I'm counting on by the time you get to your 30s, if you're not there, you need to kind of look at and recalibrate what's going on. And let me go ahead and help you out with that. Let's get you some motivation here. The two things that immediately hit me is I want you to go to moneyguy.com/resources. This one's free. Just go get the money multiplier. If you go download that money multiplier, you can figure out what every dollar that comes in your possession, if you'll put it to work, what it has the potential to become, no matter what your age is, because we have several resources there. We can even do this for your grandchildren. I mean, if there's somebody in your house that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years old, we've got a deliverable that will show you what that money could become. But that's only, you're going to quickly realize when you start playing with the money multiplier, you'll be like, but what am I trying to get to? What's the end of this destination? How much? I need to know kind of what the number is that I'm saving for so I can back into my savings rate. And that's why, and this one's not free, but I think you'll find it very approachable, is learn.moneyguy.com. We have your Know Your Number course, because that one is going to really help you dive into those variables to really maximize that answer for you, because that's the thing. I think most people underestimate how many variables go into that very simple question of how much I should be saving. Why not go ahead and put something to paper, to plan, so that you actually are a little more deliberate than just even the percentage. I love the percentage because it's a good general guidance of saving 20, 25%. What's even better is if you know what you're saving too. Because here's what I know from our annual wealth survey. Every year we have open-ended questions at the end saying, hey, what would you tell your 20 to 25-year-old self? I keep waiting. Now, maybe somebody's going to be a smart aleck. We'll get a smart aleck because they've watched this show enough that they'll say it just to be the funny person. But I'm still waiting for that person that says, I saved too much. I should have YOLO'd it up. Should have YOLO'd it up a lot more in my 20s and 30s. No, everybody, I mean, we get at least, it's probably 10% of respondents or more will say, man, I wish I would have saved more. I wish I would have told my younger self, get to work so you have options. Because remember, debt is control. Independence, when you have enough money to do what you want, you do it how you want, when you want, and you control the why you want to do it. That you can't do that without money. You're essentially buying your life when you've prioritized financial independence. While you have to work to pay the bills, to pay the debt, that's control. Let's get you completely free by shaking loose of any type of chains or encumbrances that keep you away from that financial independence goal.
Fantastic. Robbie, if you would like a tumbler, since we answered your question, just email Katie, Katie, at moneyguy.com, and we will work on getting that sent out to you. Okay. Megan has a question, and I think she's echoing a sentiment we're getting a lot right now. I've heard you say that trees don't grow to heaven, but you also talk about the stock market being a mountain with a yo-yo, the yo-yo going up the mountain, right? Does that mountain go to heaven, or could we be heading down?
That's a great question.
Isn't it?
That is a great question.
So here's something I want you to think about, because I mean, when you hear that you're going to be investing in an index fund, let's talk about what is an index fund, because sometimes we're so busy talking about the tax efficiency, the low cost, and how it whoops up on the active managers by like 80% outperformance if you look at it on a 10-year or greater basis. We kind of can get lost in what the index fund actually is from a structural standpoint. Like if we just take an example of the S&P 500. The S&P 500 is the 500 biggest United States companies. And you're investing in them. And the reason we get excited about it is because I really do believe in accelerating returns. I think human nature is that we want to grow, we want to innovate, and that growth and that innovation actually is something you can profit off of. You can invest in the future and in that ever expanding economy by doing that. But that's a great question that Megan has, is that she's like, does that go to heaven? Here's the answer. If you go look at the S&P 500 of 1995 versus the S&P 500 of 2022, you're going to see a different S&P 500. I mean, let's go back to the mid-90s. Jack Welch, GE. GE is, people are calling it a mutual fund why buy a mutual fund? Just buy GE. GE's like a mutual fund because they got financial arm. They got where they're making your appliances. I mean, they were doing all kind of stuff. And everybody, so if you'd have just, there's a tree that didn't grow to heaven. But you know what? The index accounted for that because they kick off as companies and innovation, and that accelerating returns actually works through fulfillment of what it looks like in practice. Companies come and go from the S&P 500. And you see that Kodak and other things, Xerox, you can think about companies, if you went back historically and be like, these were market leaders. And then they drop from the top 10, and then they eventually fall off of the top 500 of the S&P 500, and then it's a whole new crop. Look at when Tesla got added to the S&P 500. What, a year and a half, 2 years ago? Maybe it's. A
couple of years ago now.
I mean, it's one of those things. It's constantly replenishing itself. They're shearing the hedges, so you get that fresh, green shoots that's going to be the future. So no, trees don't grow to heaven, but when you're pruning, you can definitely get the biggest version of the tree that you possibly can.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. The analogy is kind of beautiful right now. I don't know. I wish Daniel was like here right now. I'd be like, Daniel, how tall is the tallest tree in the world? I don't know the answer to that, but I imagine it's pretty tall, but it's not as big as the mountains. And you think about the scope and the size of that. When it comes to building wealth and building your portfolio, there are things that can happen that can be trees, individual stocks, individual strategies. But when it comes to building wealth over the long term, it's not a shot straight up. It doesn't just go straight up and down. It is sort of a steady walk. It's a path. It's a journey. But mountains are big, and they go for a long time. I think it's not a perfect analogy, but it is really interesting when you think about when you are making financial decisions. Are you hoping for a tree that's going to shoot straight up, or are you consistently understanding, hey, I'm going to take this journey up this mountain, but I'm going to go up and then I'm going to come down, and I'm going to go up and I'm going to come down. But so long as I'm consistently walking forward, I'm moving to higher and higher and higher ground. The problem with trying to climb the highest tree in the world is if you fall, it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. A mountain, I'm kind of painting this analogy here.
It's painting a picture.
Is a little bit of a better trajectory over the long term when you think about building your wealth. I think it's a really good question. That's one. I got to noodle on that one a little bit longer because I think that's pretty interesting.
I feel on solid ground because I think if you're not in a world that humans aren't innovating and expanding, I mean, because remember, I made this joke yesterday when we were doing the 401k presentation. Remote controls. I was the remote control, when I was a kid. I've shared that before. There's a reason bean bags were so popular when I was a kid, is because you stuck your kids on the bean bag and then their big toes controlled the UHF and the VHF on the TV. And now look at, what you walk around with your phone. What you walk around in your pocket with your smartphone is more powerful than what took us to the moon. I mean, there's just so many things. So I don't want to live in a world where humans aren't trying to grow and become better. And you'd even asked me, you said, Brian, the internet changed the world, computers, obviously. Is there something right now?
I was like, what do you think the next thing is going to be? What are the interesting things?
Are you kidding me? I mean, there's so many things going on where, between, a lot of them, Elon, is on, between the robots, between the Starlinks and the independence of, you can kind of come off the grid and, there's just so much cool, exciting stuff. And then that's not even getting into medical science. I still think it's a super exciting thing, and innovation and acceleration is still occurring, and you can profit in a good way and be part of the ever-growing and expanding economy.
That's great.
That's fantastic. Megan, really good question. If you would like one of these new Money Guy tumblers, you can email Katie, Katie, @moneyguy.com, and we will work on getting that sent out to you. Next question is from Hawkeye Farm D13, which Hey, man, good to see you in the chat today. Would you guys recommend tax loss harvesting in this current environment? Again, another current environment question for you.
All right, so let me go ahead and give you the disclaimer. We can't give you personalized investment or tax advice because we don't know your unique situation. So should you do tax loss harvesting in this environment? I don't know. We need to know more stuff to know the answer to that. I can say this. Tax loss harvesting is very attractive in this kind of environment. What is tax loss harvesting? It's a pretty simple process. You own something that loses value. You decide, you know, I'm going to sell that thing that's lost value. I'm going to go buy something similar, not identical, but similar, so that when this recovers, I will recover said value that was lost. And what I've done is I have harvested or capitalized on those losses that I took, and I can use that to offset future capital gains, current capital gains this year, and I can even carry it forward into future years. So it's a great strategy. Well, a lot of people say, hey guys, I did that, but man, I did it in like May, and I've still got some red in my portfolio. Well, there's nothing to say that when it comes to loss harvesting, it's not something that you can carry throughout the whole year. Now, you have to make sure you understand the rules, because if you run afoul of them, you'll be pretty upset. You'll think you did this great thing and you had this beautiful loss that you harvested, and you'll see in your statement there's this thing called a wash sale, a disallowed loss. That is not as much fun. You don't get any benefit from doing that. But there's nothing to stop you if you are someone who has a large taxable portfolio and you want to figure out how to turn this unique downturn from lemons into lemonade. Tax loss harvesting is a great strategy to be able to do that.
Sometimes I want to know if the content team put this question in under some, I don't know if Hawkeye, because, you know, Reby was so friendly just then. Because when we were having a content meeting recently, one of the show ideas was a deep dive on loss harvesting. And we've written the show notes on it. But I was like,
got to give the people what they want.
Nobody wants to talk about a deep dive where we're doing a full show on loss harvesting. But here we go. Hawkeye asked this question. So good news for you, Hawkeye. We actually have a super deep dive, because loss harvesting, I think, is a tremendously powerful tool to where you can, as Bo's, I'll use his words, you can turn lemons into lemonade. But there are some side effects or unintended consequences you have to plan for. And guess what? We cover every bit of that. So, you know, check your, I hate to leave a cliffhanger, but it's crazy. I can't cover it in a 3 to 5 minute Q&A question. We have a full deep dive coming out in the next 2 to 3 weeks. That I think you will love, because we can tell you anything and everything you'd want to know about loss harvesting and how you can maximize not only the benefits, but also know, you know, on the front end, what are the negatives and how you can actually turn those into positives too. So it lets you layers the lemons into lemonade into multiple scenarios. So take advantage of that, and I think a lot of people will benefit.
And I think one of the great things is this shows, Hawkeye, you naturally have a financial mutant's mindset. We know from The Millionaire Next Door that one of the traits of millionaires, they recognize market opportunities. They understand when things present themselves. A lot of people are saying things right now like, oh, I'm not looking at my statements. I'm burying my head in the sand. I don't want to see it. And I get that. And if you're an emotional person, that's probably a viable strategy if you're afraid you'll make a bad decision. But I do think that true financial mutants, even in downturns, can recognize opportunities that exist that will allow them to maximize what they're doing. This year's a great example. Maybe it's loss harvesting. Maybe it's the timing on when you do Roth conversions. Maybe it's when you think about doing pre-tax contributions versus Roth contributions inside your 401k. Downturns can provide a lot of opportunity to do some really interesting things, but you have to be looking for it. And you have to, if you can put in that little bit extra and figure out that little optimized strategy, there's a really good chance that you will find on the other side of this thing, you'll say things like, man, I am so glad that I did that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Hawkeye, if you would like to cash in on your Tumbler, just email Katie, Katie, at moneyguy.com.
What's funny is, you know, we have a lot of folks, Reby, who will say something like, hey guys, I've already got a Tumbler. I don't need another. You think anybody's going to say that? I bet they're not. I bet everyone's going to get
Well, that's
these.
why I said, hey, Hawkeye has a Tumbler. I know this. But he does not have this Tumbler. He does not have this one. So yeah, we're kind of setting things
I feel like you should tell people that that's the
default.
Transformer sound. I feel like it's
No,
important.
you don't. Bo, what, you just broke the illusion.
No,
You just ruined the magic trick. Now that you're telling them what that sound was, they
didn't want
saw
people
it.
to
They
be
saw
like,
the transformation when they
guys,
saw my koozie.
I'm worried about Brian. He keeps making these funny sounds.
To be honest, I did not pick up on that. So, but I might be in the minority. Okay, let's move on to Shant's question. How much income do I actually need to replace in retirement if I'm saving 25 to 30% of my household gross? Since I'm only living off, say, 50 to 60% after taxes, is that all I need? Is that what I should I plan for? Like, is there a rule of thumb on that?
That's a really interesting question. And Brian, you and I talk a lot about this when we're talking with clients, because a lot of people have this idea of, okay, I make $100,000 a year. I guess I just got to build up enough portfolio so that I can have $100,000 in retirement. And by the way, I'm nowhere near that, so I'm way behind. I don't know if it's going to work. And one of the things, and I've heard you do this a number of times, is there sort of some things you can think about, some things that are true that happen in retirement, some income sources that are present in retirement, as well as some things you're doing while you're accumulating that maybe the situation isn't quite as dire as you think it is.
And tell me if I missed this, Bo, but I think you're alluding to those variables that obviously, because ultimately your retirement number is what's your need from the portfolio, and there's variables that actually lower that number. It's Social Security, if you have a pension, or something. There's cash flow things that are coming your way that will actually lower. So maybe if you're spending, $60,000 a year, $5,000 a month, but you know that you're going to have $2,500 a month coming in from these other sources, all of a sudden your need from your portfolio just got cut in half. So I think it is very important, Chance, to kind of understand, all the variables. That's one of the things. This is exactly the discussion that led to Know Your Number.
Sure.
I mean, if you go to learn.moneyguy.com, we actually created a kind of a tool/course to help you walk through what are all the variables you'll need to know to kind of figure out what financial independence is. And then so you can kind of go ahead and figure out what that number above your head should be to start saving for. And what I like is it also will give you the feedback. So maybe when you get to your mid-40s, you're like, you know what? This has gone so much better because I was investing so heavily during that bear market when valuations were depressed and I was getting every dollar was buying $1.25 or even $1.40 of value because the market was disconnected from what things were worth. So maybe in your 40s, you look at yourself and you look at the numbers and you're like, maybe I don't need to be saving 25 to 30% or whatever the number was that you were doing. You will have the ability, the privilege of kind of making that decision versus the alternative of that is being that person that didn't save when you were younger and then realizing, hey, maybe instead of taking my foot off the go pedal, I have to save more. That's really the scenarios that you're going to be having that discussion in the future.
And your retirement is so specialized. This may be surprising to you. There are some clients of ours that have retired and what they needed their portfolio to replace for them was 40 to 50% of their pre-retirement income because of those other income sources. There are other clients that they actually saved in such a way so that their portfolio could provide a pay raise for them when they get to retirement because they knew they wanted to pay for their grandkids to go to certain colleges and they wanted to be able to travel and they wanted to buy that second home or they wanted to fill in the blank. How much do you need in retirement is very specific around your personal situation. This is why one of the things we always encourage people to do when you're in that 5 to 10 year window heading towards retirement is you better start figuring out what do you want that to look like? What are you retiring to? What are the things you're going to be spending your time doing? And what are the cost metrics associated with that? Because you really can't answer the question, okay, do I have enough money? Can I do this? Can I step away? Unless you have a good feel for, okay, what do I plan on consuming in financial independence? That's probably one of the more important variables you'll try to figure out in your financial life, but it's not cut and dry. Okay, well, you need exactly 62% of pre-retirement income and you'll be set. That's a good thing to kind of figure out on the front end of retirement, but as you move on the front end of your accumulation, but as you move closer to retirement, you got to get laser precise with that.
Awesome. Shant, if you would like a new Money Guy tumbler, just email Katie, Katie, at moneyguy.com.
Shant? I wrote down, oh man, I said chance.
What's so funny is you were so convinced.
Shant.
I said
I am so sorry. That's just Brian
What's
can't
so funny
spell.
is I
can't spell.
I literally marked through it because I heard Shant, but when you said Shant, I was like, oh my gosh, I missed it. I totally missed it.
It was Shant.
Katie at moneyguy.com to pay you forward for my mispronouncing your name, and you can get a new tumbler like everybody else.
There you go.
Was it Shant? Wasn't Shant's the kid's name from Sandlot? Was that his name? I can't remember. I'm drawing a blank.
I've aged out.
I don't think, but it's been a while since I've seen that.
Fine. I'm sure the audience will let me know.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on.
I can't remember. Yeah, keep going as you were.
Okay, just checking. Okay. KP has a question next. He says, just had a newborn baby girl. Congrats.
Oh,
that's very
awesome.
exciting. Thoughts on saving for college and thoughts on what higher education will look like in 18 years. Thanks.
Oh, man.
You guys don't have any thoughts on this.
So I want to make sure I get the question. So thoughts on saving for college.
Yeah, first
and
of all,
thoughts
just saving
on
for college.
The cost of college.
Yes.
Yeah, it's an interesting. Can I ask you a question, Reese? Is this okay?
course.
Because obviously, you guys have had a recent baby, and so you've probably had some thoughts around.
We have.
Okay, well, college. What from a mental standpoint?
Yes.
For a new parent. What are some of the things that you guys have been talking about? Only because I want KP to know
Right.
he or she's probably not alone.
Oh,
in thinking
absolutely
about this.
not. And there's obviously, we love 529s around here, but like once you get into it, there's so many options. We definitely want to save for him. We know that. But I will be honest, there has been like do you think he'll go to college? Like,
Because there's some uncertainty around
yeah,
that,
like
right?
what if he wants to do, and my husband and I are both in creative fields.
Sure.
So we're like, what if he wants to be creative? Like, because I had a great college experience. My husband was like, may or may not have been worth it. Like, we have even that conversation about like what majors we've had. So we definitely want to save for him. And the grandparents have talked about 529, so that may happen. So that's where we are. I really do understand. I still think 529 is a really good thing because it can be used for any education, which is great. But I will probably be looking at some of the custodial accounts and stuff that you guys look at too, like when my husband and I officially open something up.
So what advice do you give a brand new parent?
There's three big things, and some of this is going to be cold water. First of all, I don't want you really thinking about this until you're step 8.
Oh,
Yeah.
love it. That's a great
Step
point.
8 of the financial order of
great point.
operations. Go to moneyguy.com/resources if you want the free deliverable, or learn.moneyguy.com if you want the deep dive on the financial order of operations, because you got it. The best gift you can give your kids is that you don't have to live in their basement. I mean, unless they want you there. Because I actually think the family where, you have family that lives close or even lives with you, I think it's very sweet when it happens organically and naturally, because I just love that. But it's different when it's kind of has to happen because the parents didn't save for the future. So make sure you get the order of operations of when you save for your brand new daughter. Right, so that's step 8. And then I was going to say 529s. I do love 529s because, man, here's why. These things are ATVs of options, because in the fact that they really are the all-terrain of
ATVs. I was like, that's a good example.
Well, no,
That's a great example.
because think about it, is that we don't know. I think education, y'all know, I've been, because I love education because it is, I feel like so much of my life is somebody held a ladder for me of, not having money, but it was the knowledge that I was able to develop turned into a tool that then was able to help me create wealth. And that's what education is. It is your ladder up with knowledge. And that's kind of the great, big, beautiful tomorrow, the abundance cycle of what we tried to create here as educators. But there is a dark side to education, I feel like right now, is that a lot of young people are coming out of school with debt that I don't know how in the heck they're ever going to get ahead of.
Prices don't seem to be slowing down.
And colleges are just tone deaf. They're like, oh, you know what? Pay raises and new buildings and facilities. I'm like, whoa, let's chill out on that. And let's focus on what's the graduation rate? What's the average income of your graduates? What's their debt load? Let's have some self-reflection to make sure the institutions haven't lost the why they're actually trying to do this too and paying it forward. So I think there is a lot of risk, because we've talked about this, Bo, with the debt loads that young people have right now. I think a lot of 20 and 30 somethings are going to, when they have children, will have a different view towards higher education, because instead of it being the leg up, it might be the shackle that sat on your shoulders for years and kept you from fulfilling all of your financial desires because you had to pay this debt off that the institutions were tone deaf and kind of strapped you with. So that's why I think that I still love 529s, because you can use them for trade schools. You can use them for K through 12 education. And then even if you don't use them because either your child didn't go to college or higher education, or your child, let's go with the positive, I'm an optimist, maybe they got a scholarship.
Sure, yeah.
You can pull the money out, and if they got a scholarship or something that's offset, you can actually pull the money out and only pay income taxes off of the gains only. But if you pull it out just because they didn't use it, you always can pay it forward to another relative, or you can pull it out and you just pay a 10% penalty on the gain only and the income taxes on the gain only. So you have options, but then
the second question, can I say a little something about the second part of the question? KP had asked, what is the future thought on college? This is a really hard one to answer, because I don't think we know the answer to.
That's why you want ATV.
What's going to happen with college, because maybe it's not there. I'll tell you personally what I'm doing, because I have the same concerns. What if college costs are so expensive that there's not a positive trade-off to actually go to college anymore? Or what if my daughters decide that they don't want to go to college, or that college isn't necessary for what they want to pursue? My wife and I are taking a middle-of-the-road approach. What we're saying is, hey, we're estimating we think college will probably cost by the time they get there, and we're going to try to save about 75% of that amount, 50 to 75% of the amount, in 529s, and with the remainder of that, we're just beefing up our hyperaccumulation individual taxable brokerage account, because we can always use those funds for that purpose in the future if we need to. I don't know if that's helpful, but that's a strategy that we're employing to not like overfund, but also not like overfocus and overfreak ourselves out.
That is helpful.
I have one last thing that I'd written down. A third thing is, it's a Reby echo, is I love the all hands on deck education funding. My mom, when my oldest was born, I think she put $1,000 into a 529, and I'm amazed because my daughter's now a freshman in college, and I haven't seen this statement because my mom, set it up as she was the named person on the 529 and my daughter was the beneficiary. But I mean, this thing has had a multiplying factor of 3 to 4-fold, and that's kind of amazing. I mean, it's really amazing to see what a little can turn into. So encourage, if you've got relatives that they, instead of buying you, I don't even know what kids play with now. It's not Tonka trucks and stuff, but instead of buying the new Leapfrog, that's probably even old now. I don't know what people play with anymore, but instead of buying all the toys and the cardboard boxes that your kids will enjoy more than the toys that came with, do an all hands on approach and encourage them to do 529s too.
Love it.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, listen, maybe my son will want to do Wonderful World of Finance.
I
need to go to college.
I know a guy that knows a guy. If that's what he wants to do.
Got to be prepared. All right, KP, if you would like a tumbler, just email Katie, Katie at moneyguy.com. You'll get a tumbler for getting your question answered. Thanks so much for submitting it. Question from Sunny. My wife and I are both 32. We invest 30% of our income, and our only debt is our mortgage. This is sounding great. How do you prevent yourself from becoming a miser? I really have trouble spending money on fun without feeling guilty about it.
I mean, what I think, Bo, is interesting, because people will be like, they're just trying to sell courses. But no, I'm like, no, this is why we design stuff.
There is
because
a
I
reason.
can't give you advice to you specifically, Sonny, because I don't know your situation. There's so many variables until you get to the top of success where the abundance cycle kicks in. That's when we actually can start working with individuals. So we really have tried to create something that would help you answer some of these questions. And that's what the Know Your Number tool and course is because it's going to hopefully give you feedback on how on track are you? Because I picked on Bo. I think this is the curse of achievers. Achievers are constantly going through mental checklist of, man, I want to do this by the time I'm 25. I want to do this by the time I'm 35. I want to, you said something to me, and I hope I'm not getting too much. We had a friend that texted you that they saw you had on your fridge like an income goal back when you
10 years
lived in a
ago.
neighborhood 10 years ago. And that probably sounds like a strange thing, but maybe not to our audience, that you actually had in a very public, place in your house, a list of financial goals
Sure.
that you were hoping to achieve, just so every time you got the orange juice out, you got a little
saw
bit
it,
of an
yeah.
attaboy to do it. I think that stuff, when you are an achiever and you're putting all these goals on yourself, I've tried to be this for you, Bo. I've
Yeah,
tried to
for sure.
mentor you as an achiever who struggles with this too, is that you better recognize you're only going to be in your 20s once.
Mm-hmm.
You're only going to be in your 30s for a short period of time. And then you get into your 40s like I am, where you get very sentimental because your mortality becomes very visible. But you're still young enough that you can do a lot of cool stuff. I want you to make sure, and that's why we did try to create the financial order of operations, so you kind of go through these steps, but so you know when you need to bedazzle your basic life, where maybe like I did, I went to Italy with my wife before we had kids, but we did it in such a cheap way that we're dragging our luggage down the cobblestone ways, we're not knowing how to work the water taxis and all the other stuff. But that was all part of the fun, blossoming memories that were stressful at the time, but now have turned into these great stories that we share with people. That was part of our bedazzled basic life when we had no money, but we still wanted to create memories. We found a way to do it. And then as we've had more success and wealth, we've expanded what it is, but it didn't keep us from actually doing something. And that's the thing I would encourage you, Sonny, is that if you've got some of these basics, but then you're looking at your life and you're going, but where's the fun? Where's the memories? Where's the part that's going to make sure that the sweetness of my 20s was enjoyed, the sweetness of my 30s, so you don't get to be that sentimental 40-year-old and be like, man, what the heck am I doing here? I'm not believe me, y'all know I am not YOLO. But I am definitely, make sure you get the sweetness of every decade of your life, because you're going to get a point that I want you to give an attaboy to yourself and say, job well done, for knowing the balancing act that comes from the analytics of knowing what your number is and what you're saving for, versus, hey, let's make sure we're living for today, because we just don't know what the future holds for us. There is a way to do that well, and that's why we do the crazy shows on happiness and other things that we 10 people watch it. But then I love it, because y'all know, we could create a show on Roth IRAs or 401ks and it's going to get a lot more clicks. But then there's a part of me that's like, no, but we need to tell people, I know how money and happiness work because I've experienced this journey and I want to share this stuff. But I know less people are going to click on that because it's not a clickable title. But then the three, like, so we went to did this 401k presentation yesterday, and one of the MCs of the event goes, that happiness show, man, it connected with me. And that's the stuff I just get goosebumps and get excited, because I want you guys to know how to do this journey well.
I want to give you sort of a practical tip in terms of how to not be a miser, because this is what helped me. You and your spouse should define what are the things that we love. Brian mentioned, for them it was traveling and building memories and that sort of thing. And I think those are really healthy, fulfilling things if that's your thing. But maybe that's not. Maybe your thing is, hey, we really love a nice car, a nicer car. We really love good food. We really love coffee. We really love athleisure. I don't know who'd be into that, but that sounds like an amazing thing to love. You define those things that you really love and say, okay, it's okay if I'm going to spend money on these things. I'm not going to, I don't prefer, I know we got to show all of it. I don't prefer like soda pop. Coke, we say Coca-Cola in the South, but not just specifically Coca-Cola. So when I go to a restaurant, it's just natural for me to drink water because I don't care about drinking Coke. But when I go to a coffee shop, I'm going to get a really nice cup of coffee because I enjoy that and I like that. For misers, if you can start defining the things that you really love, it'll be easier for you to spend money on that. Because most misers think, oh, I don't spend money on anything. Well, that's fine. If you want to do the dollar menu, that's awesome. If you want to drink water when you go out, that's awesome. But if there are things that you love, my wife's is interior design. She's working on a specific room in our house right now for a very specific purpose. And she is just like all in on this thing. And I know this is what brings her happiness and fulfillment, and it's what she wants to do. And there's some other, nature stuff going on that causes that to happen right now. So I am okay that that's something we're going to spend our money on. If you can define that for you and your spouse, Sonny, I think that you'll be in a great spot.
Great. Sonny, if you would like a tumbler you can email Katie, Katie, at moneyguide.com, and we'll work on sending that out to you. Thanks for your question.
Hey, Reeves, before you ask the last question, this can be extra for all the live streamers.
Parts for free.
Bo and I had to travel for that 401k presentation yesterday. And here's something, because he said his love of athleisure or wear or whatever it's called. If you know how you hear when people host Saturday Night Live, they have a whole meeting where they sit at a table and they pitch ideas of what they think would be a good skit, and, and the host is involved in that. I think it happened to me on this 401k trip. I think I came up with a good skit, and Bo was the inspiration of it. Is because we get to our hotel rooms. We each have our rooms, but I tell Bo, I was like, come to my room because I know you said you want to show me a few of those YouTube videos. And I was shocked. I thought he would just go put his stuff in his room and then come over and we watch this. And he showed up in like full on like shorts and athlete.
He loves athleisure.
Like he looked at.
But it was Clark Kent style. Like
you would have thought that's actually the Saturday Night Live skit. Is that you're in all kind of life events, and then people who are polished and look this way. All of a sudden they show up and look like they're ready to go be a bro at the gym, and you're like, what the heck happened to you? I mean, you're just coming in here for like to watch 10 minutes of YouTube videos.
I want to be comfortable.
And he was an athlete in all this athletic wear, and it's always in these bright colors. And I've picked you just should know that's a running joke we have, is that a drop of a hat, if Bo had his way, he'd be in here with his hat on backwards and in
and some
joggers
and a dry fit.
I have to strike this balance of ensuring that he looks like, hey, we run a wonderful world of finance firm here, but first, I mean, he's in athletic wear.
We should do an athleisure show.
I vote for that.
We're not encouraging this behavior.
I would get to wear it too.
Reeves onto something.
I mean, but I want to. It catches me off guard when all of a sudden it's like, whoa, workout Bo showed up.
That's hysterical. That was all for free. Just a little behind the scenes extra.
Chop that one up, Nate.
Love the live stream chit chat. Okay, we got a question from Zachary. If my employer 401k offers both traditional and Roth, what are the pros and cons of using the Roth 401k versus a separate Roth IRA? My employer contributions are already maxed for the year.
All right, so Brian, let's answer this question. Let's answer this question well. I'm going to talk about the difference in traditional and Roth. That wasn't the crux of it, but it's important to do that. I'm going to break this down very simply. With a traditional 401k, you put your money in pre-tax, you get a current year tax benefit. It grows tax deferred. When you pull it out in retirement, you pay taxes. When you do the Roth, you put the money in now, you do not get a current year tax benefit. The money grows tax deferred, and then assuming certain qualifications are met, when you pull it out, it is completely tax free. So Roth 401ks are amazing options because it provides this mechanism and opportunity for tax-free dollars in your portfolio. His question was, how do I decide between Roth 401k and Roth IRA? What are the differences? What are the benefits?
I'm going to let you clean this up, but I had 3 things that popped in my head because I always want people to know how to act on stuff. And look, we don't know your situation, so this could be customized. That's the disclaimer. But if you're young, man, that really puts the needle strong on the Roth column because that's tax-free growth with compounding. That's powerful. If you're in a low income, low tax rate situation, meaning you don't have a lot of income coming into the household, that also once again puts the needle on Roth and tax-free growth because the money is growing long-term, completely tax-free. And then here's the contrarian one that most people don't think about. If you're mega rich, also look at the Roth column because sometimes Roth accounts, even though you're going to be foregoing the higher tax rate that you're paying, there's a great estate planning in the fact that you can pass that on for 10 years if the beneficiary is normal. If there's special needs, there might even be a way to extend that beyond, or if they're a spouse. But tax-free growth is a very powerful thing for mega wealthy people. Bo, what would you put in there?
No, I love it. Specifically, when you think about the differences, pros, cons, benefits, lack of benefits between a Roth IRA outside and your 401k, 401ks often have fees associated with them. It could be internal operating expenses of the funds themselves, or it could be administration fees for the record keeper and third-party administrator. When you go out and open your own Roth IRA, if you go open with a low-cost provider like a Fidelity or Vanguard, there probably aren't any other fees associated with the account other than the internal operating expense of your investment. So there's a chance Roth IRA can be less expensive than the Roth 401k. However, Roth IRAs have an income limit. If you make over a certain amount of money, you cannot put money into the Roth IRA. Roth 401ks have no income limit. You can make $1 million a year and still do Roth 401k contributions. And the contribution limit is different. With a Roth IRA, if you're under 50, you can only do $6,000 a year. With a Roth 401k, you can do $20,500 a year. So there's a lot bigger bucket that you can get into. And the one other pro-con difference I want to throw out there, with a Roth IRA, there is no required minimum distribution at age 72. With a Roth 401k, if it's still in the 401k, you do have to begin taking required minimum distributions at 72. So if you're someone who is older or is retired and you have money in your Roth 401k, you may potentially want to roll it into a Roth IRA so that you don't get hit with those required minimum distributions.
Man, I felt like I was watching you bob and weave between all those different variables. Pretty impressive stuff there, Bo.
Great. Zachary, thank you so much for that question. If you would like to cash in on your tumbler that you just won, you can email Katie, Katie, @moneyguy.com. What a fun way to kick off this new brand, these new tumblers. Thank you so much, guys. The new course. I know, man, this is honestly a really big day for us. So thanks for just hanging out with us, submitting all your questions, and just celebrating and having some fun with us. So yeah, work on emailing Katie if your question was asked, and we'll get those tumblers sent out to you. And then be excited for the Know Your Number course dropping this afternoon. And if you haven't jumped in on that, you can still do that. Learn.moneyguy.com.
Hey, and don't go check out some of the new deliverables. Also, are the retouched up deliverables, new branded, is moneyguy.com/resources. Guys, we have a blast. I'm your host, Brian Preston. For the rest of the Money Guy team, Bo, Reby, we're out.